All right. Good morning, and welcome to our first webinar of 2026. We are continuing the series Aligning and Advising for Education, Experience, and Employment. And this month, we will be focusing on helping students build meaningful plans for high school that align with their post-secondary aspirations. And today we have three guests that will share how four guests because we have an extra special guest today. But we have some guests that will share how high school students are taking advantage of opportunities in high school that are directly aligned to post-secondary credentials and truly strengthen the K-12 workforce and post-secondary institution partnerships. The pathways that we will be focusing on today are healthcare and aviation. And joining us for our panel, we have Lance Blanford, and Lance is the Workforce Development, Career, and Technical Education Coordinator for Bardstown City Schools. And in this role, he works to identify career and technical education opportunities for Bardstown students. He continues to build strong relationships with students and businesses in the community to support the successful transition of all students into the workforce. He is active with several community organizations, and just to mention a couple, he has served as the chair of the Bardstown Nelson County Chamber of Commerce Board and currently serves as the chair of the Lincoln Trail Workforce Development Board. We also have joining us Rick Markle, and he's a seasoned aviation inspection authorized airframe and power plant mechanic, a pilot, and an entrepreneur with over 35 years of industry experience. Currently, Rick is the build manager and student mentor for the Bluegrass Aerospace Experience in Bardstown, and he continues his passion for STEM outreach by leading 24 high school students per year through an immersive experiential internship to build high performance aircraft. Um, we also have joining us Michaela Steverson, and she has been with the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education for over 4 years. She currently serves as the program manager for healthcare workforce initiatives. She oversees projects within the Healthcare Workforce Collaborative and manages the Healthcare Workforce Investment Fund, focusing on strategies to address critical workforce challenges in healthcare. Previously, Michaela was part of the CPE's academic affairs team, and prior to that, she was the assistant director of admissions for recruitment at the University of Kentucky's Office of Undergraduate Admissions. We also have joining us Seth Acree, who is a sophomore, second year aviation student, part of the Bardstown City Schools aviation program. So, welcome to you all. Michaela, Rick, Lance, and Seth. We are so glad to have you today. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start and hear from our panelists. And you all are all welcome to go ahead and turn your cameras on so that our participants can see your smiling faces this morning. But we will start with Michaela. And so, Michaela, tell us a little bit about the initiative you work with called Climb 2.0 that addresses the need for mental health counselors in Eastern Kentucky.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us today, Mitzi. It's always exciting to share the great work being done in healthcare workforce, and that's a lot of ways in partnership with many across the state that are doing this in their region. And CPE just wants to give them a platform or funding resources to help them continue their great work. So a few years ago, we started an initiative called Climb, Career Ladders in Mental and Behavioral Health. And what this does is it really piggybacks off of the success of that initiative. That first initiative was in partnership with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services and KCTCS. We had 9 campuses buy into that initiative. And it really just focused on any adult that was wanting to go back, finish their education after getting through their recovery from addiction or substance use, to go in, get a credential to be able to work in their community as an adult peer support specialist. Saw great success through that program. And where my heart lies, obviously, is yes, in adult learners, but obviously in that high school student. And so I was excited that we wanted to continue to partner with the cabinet, and we got another round of funding to do a Climb 2.0, as we say. What this one does, and we'll dive in through it a little bit more through your questions you have today, but it focuses more on still engaging students in rural areas, but getting them into those mental and behavioral health careers like registered behavioral technicians and community health workers. But we also know that a lot of those credentials can start earlier in high school. So just exposing students through a pathway program where at the end of it, they can actually go on directly into employment and or, which is my hope, employment and education in the post-secondary level.
Perfect. It sounds like a great opportunity, and I love the fact that it's really intentionally trying to strengthen that that K-12 post-secondary partnership. So we heard you say that it's intentionally aligned across high schools and community and technical colleges, and working with employers. So can you walk us through how that alignment works in practice? And before you start that, let me tell the audience participants that if you all have questions for Michaela or Lance or Rick or Seth at any time during this, please drop them in that Q&A feature and we will get those answered. I failed to mention that earlier, but walk us through how that alignment works, Michaela.
Sure. So this is really the brainchild of Carl Wilson. He's a senior fellow that is soon retiring from our unit. And what he recognized from his experience in previous work at Big Sandy Community and Technical College was that based on the data, based on his experience, we know that in Eastern Kentucky, there is a huge gap in mental and behavioral health services. And so what we wanted to do was just train students as early as their junior year of high school to be credentialed to meet that need in that shortage area. So first, how it works is we pulled together the UK Center for Excellence in Rural Health, since they are already providing the education for community health worker certification. KCTCS, we know that KCTCS touch is critical since so many of our campuses have an easy touch point with so many of our rural communities. So we pulled in Big Sandy, Southeast, and Hazard Community and Technical Colleges and their representatives, their dual credit coordinators, and then the high schools. That was the final piece, getting that buy-in from the high schools. And I won't list out all of them. It is a pilot program still, but we worked with the 9 pilot high schools in those areas in southeastern Kentucky to say, hey, would you just let us try something? And so what we did is we have 38 students as of today that are actually enrolled. So that's why a lot of this information is still very flexible as we're molding out the program. But as of today, 38 students are starting in that program. And what will happen in a nutshell is through curriculum, through the UK Center, and through KCTCS providing dual credit, these students from their junior year through their senior year will participate in some programming. And I'll dive into that more here in a little bit. And they're going to get co-credentialed through this curriculum to be able to sit for their certification in community health worker and RBT, that registered behavioral technician certifications. And so what will happen is through credit for prior learning, those students will then be given at least a minimum of 6 credit hours to put towards a stackable post-secondary credential. And then they're also going to be paired with an employer in the area. So think in southeastern Kentucky, the Avis Center, Mountain Comprehensive Care. Those employers were about to hopefully get some MOAs signed with them, get them on board, to help do some skills demonstrations, mentoring. And that way, at the end of it, the student's going to have dual credit experience where they can stack it if they want to continue their education or go directly into employment with one of those employers that has been mentoring them throughout this entire process. So we have key touch points where we're going to align it with our student experience from junior year through senior year. And I'll dive into that more as we talk today.
Perfect, Michaela. This sounds like such a wonderful opportunity for students. So, I mean, you talked a little bit about this, but how does Climb 2.0 really ensure that what students learn in high school translates seamlessly to those post-secondary credentials and real workforce opportunities?
Sure. I think a big part of that is the KCTCS enrollment in the UK participation. And so from day one, the students are going to be taught in a core, like a college course structure. And so really anything they're learning in their one semester course, so they're going to take a weekly course each semester. That course is going to be very hands-on. They're going to be diving directly into that certification. And we know that those employers know exactly how to apply that certification. We're going to get employer buy-in saying, hey, in addition to just the books, the textbooks, what skills should these students be doing? Well, that's when the employers come in and help teach through skills demonstration actually what the students need to be doing through mentorship, placement, shadowing. I think that skills demonstration component is going to be key, and that will start their fall of 2026. So this fall of their senior year, they'll start matching with an employer, which will actually take that textbook curriculum they're learning in through UK's curriculum and applying it as soon as this fall, again throughout the spring. And then I think the best part is the summer bridge portion of this. And that's really where they're going to be able to take what they've learned in the class through their skills demonstration requirements. And yes, they're going to be sitting for their certifications, which would make them employable during that summer bridge program. But that summer bridge program is really a showcase. It's less of a traditional bridge program and more of a showcase of the skills so the student can have confidence in themselves that they're ready to go into employment. They can do peer support, peer-to-peer mentoring, make sure they all maximize the competency skills assessments that will be put in front of them. But then also they'll be celebrated and graduate and be ready for employment.
This sounds awesome, and I'm really glad you're sharing. And I haven't really looked at the Q&A, but if there is, I'm going to ask Susie or Heather to bring that to our attention, if you don't mind, if there are questions. But as we kind of wrap up this discussion, Michaela, I want to give you an opportunity, first of all, to add anything else that maybe you want to mention, but also address what success is going to look like over the next few years for students, for communities, for Kentucky's behavioral health workforce.
I think one of the best parts of CPE and working in this industry is we are the conveners of a lot of conversations. And although we may not always see immediate outcomes, we know that here in a year or two, the hope is that these students are going to stay in their communities, they're going to continue their education, but they're going to fill those workforce shortages in that area with a meaningful credential. And so I know we have that 60 by 30 goal. We all plug shamelessly all the time. The goal is that people understand that this is getting us towards that goal, getting students credentialed earlier and giving them credentials that matter and can stack for longer term success, really putting them on a career path. That's the point of this program. It's not a destination, it's just a pathway to launch them into exposure to what post-secondary actually means. A lot of these students may not have followed a traditional 4-year career and college opportunity. So this exposure early is going to be key. The kicker is while this is a pilot program and those 38 students are really the guinea pigs to see how this works, we already know through the strong partnerships with KCTCS and UK, we know the curriculum will indeed prepare students for success. So what we hope is that once people see the metrics come out, see the great story of Climb2's work, that they'll just reenact or I guess replicate this with other different opportunities. It doesn't have to just be in mental and behavioral health. But the hope is that KCTCS and other training programs will come to the table, look at their regional need, what shortages exist, and how can we involve high schoolers in those stackable pathways to start exposure to post-secondary early, intentionally get students into those dual credit pathways that start a career earlier, and then really just making sure each region is basically coming to the table to say, this is the pathway we need. How can we use the model of Climb2, but basically reinvent the wheel for a new industry area? It's a long-winded way of saying we just want this to be replicated.
I love it. And really it truly is a great way to look at, like you said, workforce needs of that region and then partner to really have a meaningful experience for students. And that's why we're all here. We want students, high school and post-secondary journey to be meaningful to them and to recognize that there are many different paths to getting to the same, final destination. And that's the beauty of all of this. And I think that's the perfect segue into introducing our next panelist. So thank you, Michaela, very much for sharing about this. And I want to introduce Lance Blanford, Rick Markle, and Seth Acree, who are going to talk to us about an aviation pathway opportunity that students in Bardstown School District have. And I'm really amazed at all in having that initial conversation with Lance at the opportunities that students have in high school, but also to transition seamlessly to a variety of post-secondary opportunities. And, just want to preface that when we say college, when we say post-secondary, we're talking about it all. We're talking about any post-secondary credentialing. We're not just saying college is a 4-year degree. So, welcome, Lance, Rick, and Seth. And if Heather can start that slide deck again, that'll give us some visuals to share as we are working through these questions. But some people may be surprised to find out that aviation is a high demand industry in Kentucky. So if you could tell us about the growing sector and how this pathway addresses the workforce needs that we have in the state. And Lance, I'll give you an opportunity to speak first. You're muted for us. Yeah.
There we go. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us today. We certainly appreciate it. And thanks to Rick and of course to Seth for joining in as well. And real quick, a comment on Michaela's presentation. Michaela, when you decide to climb on over to Central Kentucky, you just let me know because we have a health science pathway here at Bardstown High School that would be glad to take part in that initiative. I own 2 mental health clinics myself, and so I understand the behavioral health shortage is statewide, and so looking forward to hopefully communicating here in the future. But yeah, so my name is Lance Blanford. Once again, I'm the Workforce Development Coordinator for Bardstown High School. I'm joined here today with Seth Cree, sophomore, and then of course Mr. Rick Markle, who is the Bluegrass Aerospace Experience, one of the instructors out there. And yeah, Mitzi, so the state of Kentucky is one of the first things I learned when we started this initiative back in 2020. And I know that because I remember everyone had to meet with masks on. So it's an easy reference point. But one thing I learned is that how big aviation was to the state of Kentucky. I got a couple slides with some information for you to look at here about its economic impact on it. So here you go, just some statistics. $23.7 billion in total economic output is in aviation. This equates to 9.1% of Kentucky's overall GDP, which is pretty impressive. There's 116,000 plus jobs supported in the state of Kentucky with over 600 employers. And I think, again, this is another important thing for not only educators, but primarily students to better understand is that the aviation, everyone thinks automatically pilots, I believe, and sometimes aircraft mechanics, but careers in aviation, they span so much more than just those 2 professions. It has a widespread impact, and really depending on students' background, there is likely an opportunity for them in the aviation world in some way, shape, or form, whether it be from hospitality to health science to retail. Aviation spans the spectrum for opportunities for students. There's $8 billion in personal income to the state of Kentucky, with $1 billion in tax revenue generated from that. And 2, the aviation industry is not only a high demand, but it's a high wage industry, and it exceeds the state average income with a average income roughly of around $75,000 per person. Of course, again, being so widespread, those incomes can vary, but definitely a good livable wage in the state of Kentucky. Few more statistics for you. The job outlook. The aviation industry is projected to grow at a rate higher than most industries in the state of Kentucky, with a plus 5% growth factor. And then again, when we look at jobs opening up annually, we're looking at 13,000 of those that are available. And so definitely something that Kentucky, and I know from all the way from KDE to or to the pilots associations to UPS to Amazon. Like everyone is playing a part in helping students understand and realize that, hey, we have openings in this industry sector and we want to get you exposed to it as early as possible. Um, and to your point earlier, Mitzi, we talk about the various on ramps to the industry. And that's what I like about this so much, this particular industry sector, is because it is so broad and wide. And I mean from the top level pretty much all the way down to the bottom level, there are various on-ramps that exist that go to this. So if your student is not interested in particularly going to college, there's still ample opportunities for them. They can go to a technical school. Sorry, the bell's ringing here if it interrupts us. But they can get certificates and licenses without attending a college program. They can go for a 2-year, 4-year degree. EKU, of course, is a major player in the state of Kentucky in the way of aviation education. And so that is what I really liked about this, and why Bardstown City Schools decided to, when we were working with the other school systems in this, and also some private donors, and also too with the Pilots Association here locally. That is what intrigued me the most about this. And then I'll let Rick kind of jump in there too, because he has a lot to share. But the last thing I'll say as part of this introduction is I want to stress the importance and clarify that this was a collaboration. It was a collaboration, which I'll talk more about here in just a moment, but it shows when multiple schools in your area can come together, what can happen along with industry and along with a strong community aspect. We partner with Nelson County Schools and also our private school here locally, which is Bethlehem High School, to send students to this program. And it creates such a good, I think, vibe for all of us, but especially for the students, because they get to meet and work alongside other students and learn from them. And I think it's been a great opportunity for our students and our schools. And this is a perfect example of what collaboration looks like in education. Rick, you want to weigh in on any of that?
Sure, I'd love to. I might add to a couple of numbers that Lance shared with us. I think it's hard for the average person, especially the high school student, to fully wrap their head around the potential income levels that are available in this industry of aviation. And many of them without attending at least traditional college programs. And one of them is for the type person as I am myself, an aviation mechanic. I am a pilot, however, I'm not a commercial pilot. I have flown since I was 15 years old. This is a passion of mine. However, my credentialing is in the maintenance end of the industry. Um, I never thought I would see a day, but here we are when a certified aviation mechanic who can literally be fully credentialed and on the job with 2 years in a community college or 30 months of apprenticeship under an A&P mechanic, as myself, can be looking at a six-figure income. And yet that's exactly what we're seeing with companies that are here in Kentucky, such as UPS. These mechanics are maturing into very high level wages. And that's something I myself, when I was 17, looking at these career paths, would have never thought was possible. But it is. It's now become a highly technical, highly skilled position that is sought after. And we're positioned very, very well here in Kentucky to leverage that in a meaningful way. Um, I wanted to add too a little bit about this outreach between schools. We presently, as Lance shared, are interacting with 4 different high schools with our programs. However, we hope to expand that in the future somewhat. And so, you know, this outreach is very meaningful to the students that we interact with. Many of them are rural students. Many of them have little other um, avenues to look at to even become exposed to aviation. And that's really what the core of our, let's say, product is that we're offering, is that we are trying to help those students be exposed to careers that they had no idea even existed, let alone how to go down that pathway to find a, a path that they can afford, first off, or secondly, that perhaps they academically can participate in. So, we have students that are the entire range. Seth, I happen to know Seth there casually. I have not worked with him hand in hand yet. I hope to next year in my build program. But in his first 2 years of aerospace within our program, I know that Seth has outstanding academics. And he will do very, very well in any field that he goes into. However, he's representative of one of three key students I tend to get, which are engineering minded students that are on an engineering pathway, mechanically minded students that would like to work in the mechanics field as an aviation mechanic, and then corporate or airline pilot inspired students. And so those three pathways are the ones I tend to focus on. But this aviation field that Lance is eloquently trying to give you an idea how vast it is so much more than those three sort of common, easily to think of roles. For instance, we have medevac helicopters that land at our airport right here in Bardstown, pretty regular for fueling, rest breaks, that sort of thing. And when we do, my students are hauled outside to that helicopter. We Shanghai those pilots, those nurses, sometimes paramedics that are in that machine, and they learn firsthand about what that career path looks like. And I've had students walk back in from that and go, oh my gosh, I never thought I could fly, have a flying career, but not be a pilot, actually be in the medical field where they actually have interest. Other than just aviation. And so we try to open those doors to so many more pathways. We have agricultural machines that come in who are, let's face it, these guys are grown-up farmers who grew up on a farm and decided, hey, I'd like to be a pilot. Next thing you know, they're out doing agricultural aviation, pipeline inspections. We had an aircraft here land last year with three scientists on it who are scanning Kentucky for gamma radiation. Some sort of sensor on the aircraft that none of us understood. I'm not sure they did, to be honest. And they fly a grid all over the United States, scanning for the entire geography for gamma radiation coming from unknown sources. Who knew that existed? And yet these people were making a career out of aviation in a way that we did not know. So I just want to throw that out there. That's a big focus of what we do here at Bardstown Airport is I've made the comment, it's like our students are on a continuous field trip. Every day, there's some sort of new thing that pops into our airport we're able to expose them to.
That's awesome. And I know Lance mentioned in his initial conversation with me that you all use a lot of work-based learning and field trips and things like that that come through the partnerships that were involved in making this actual aviation program happen. And I want to come back to that in just a minute, but I also want to make sure that we touch on several other things before our time ends. And I know we still have plenty of time, but we do have a question in the Q&A. There's folks wanting more information about the aviation pathway and programs. And I want to assure you that we will certainly share out this slide deck after the fact, but also put you in contact with Mr. Markle and Mr. Blandford, and also share some resources that we have through the Kentucky Advising Academy. So look for those in a follow-up email. Before we move back to the partnership question, I want to touch a little bit on, Lance, how the aviation pathway intentionally aligns the high school coursework, dual credit coursework, post-secondary certifications and degrees, especially through JCTC and transitions into EKU or any other avenue that students might choose.
Sure. Where's my slide? I don't know why it's not popping up, Mitzi. I had the slide for that. Oh,
We got time. Just scroll.
oh, here we go.
There you
Here's
go.
one. All right. Yeah. Sorry for the I swear that looked right on my computer. I'm not sure why the wording there overlapped, but this will give you a little example of what the program looks like. So I'm gonna kind of give you the bigger picture, and then I'll go back and talk about the finer details of it. So the first 2 years of the student's experience, it's a 4-year program that they can join at any point of their high school career into this program. It is a little bit more competitive once you get into the upper level programs, and so we encourage students, if you think that you're interested in this, there are limited number of spots, and so we highly recommend trying to get involved as early as possible so that you have the best shot at getting a spot into one of the year 3 or year 4 programs. But year 1 and 2, again, introductory classes, as you see there. And then after they have a base understanding, that's an AOPA curriculum, by the way, in year 1 and year 2. After they have a base level understanding, then they switch over to the build program in year 3. This is where this program originated. That is where it started, was the build program alone. I referenced a private donor that was so generous, the Sunflower Fund, and they provided us with seed money to purchase an airplane kit. It was a Carbon Cub airplane kit. A Carbon Cub is Rick could talk much more eloquently about this, but it's a sport aircraft that's meant to and designed, I think, to land in the wilderness. And it's very popular amongst certain populations across the country. And so we were able to buy that first kit, and it comes in 8,000 pieces. And then our students put it all together over the course of a year. They then sold that airplane for twice the amount and were able to then purchase the next year kit. And then we've continued on and on. That is where the program first started, was the build program. And then the next idea that the collaborative had was moving into, okay, let's take some additional funding that we had from the sale of the aircraft, and let's provide flight scholarships to students in year 4. And so those students that participate in the build program, and sometimes students that don't participate in the build program, if they just want to fly, they enter that year 4 program, and they are able to go ground to solo flight. So they go through their ground school, and then the exciting opportunity for them to take that first flight, which is, if you ever watch it, it's pretty nerve-wracking. Rick has probably a little bit more nerves of steel in that regard, but the first time I saw one of our students go up by themselves, knowing the student for years and years and years, it scared me to death. But he did great, and it was really, really impressive. So over the years, we expanded upon that. That's when we kind of did it in reverse, if you could think about it. Then we went back and added in the year 1 and 2 introductions. And so now the year 1 and 2s feed all of the other programs. And as you see there, they learn a lot of foundational information regarding flight before they enter that program. And then they can apply to years 3 and 4 year to year. And then if you look at year 3 and year 4, it is aligned. There are dual credit opportunities through EKU, Aviation 150, Intro to Aviation, and VN 170, Introduction to Unmanned Aircraft Systems. And then in year 4, EKU AVN 161, which is a private pilot airplane ground. So they do have the opportunity to get some credit on that. But again, I will mention this is great for students that want to transition to EKU or another post-secondary education opportunity. And we have students that have done just that. But we also have a student, and Rick, I'm thinking of JT here. I'm sorry, not JT, Gibson here, who was a young man that decided not to go to college and has just pursued a commercial pilot's license just by getting his airtime and, of course, going through the necessary training for that. But he does not attend a post-secondary opportunity or a traditional college in that way. And so both of them, JT scored a 32 on his ACT, and Gibson scored a 30 on his ACT. Typically, those are, you would think, college-bound kiddos, but again, it goes to show you that those opportunities are so vast, and it really is just dependent on what the student wants. And don't let me confuse you here. You know, we've had students that aren't that academically inclined. We have students that just don't typically learn the way that some other students learn, and they're more hands-on. And they've had extreme success in this program, in large part due to Mr. Markle and the team out there. And so that's what the program looks like. And I also understand, to those listening out there, that we were very fortunate. You know, we had that donation that allowed us to get that. I will say, though, I think that, and Mr. Markle could probably speak more on this, but there are businesses. Again, I mentioned there's 600 plus businesses out there. There's businesses and organizations in the aviation world that really want to see this opportunity expand. And if you just generate a conversation with them and express interest in starting an aviation program at your high school, I think that you can find the funding. It's just creating those partnerships and starting those conversations and having a dream and then going after it.
Thank you, Lance. And I love this because it gives so many opportunities to so many different students. And like you said, different academic abilities and different learning styles. So it kind of really is a full circle approach to education, experience, and then employment. I want to just switch gears for just 1 second and hear from Seth just a little bit, if he doesn't mind, to tell us what it is like from a student's perspective to be in this program, and a little bit about, I think you're a year 2 student, so kind of tell us about what your experiences have been so far and kind of what you're looking forward to in the future.
Sure. So, as you've heard, my name's Seth Akery, and I'm a sophomore here at Bardstown High School, and I'm in the aviation program. And so last year I took the year 1 course, and so we did a lot of hands-on things. We built a rocket and went out and launched it. It went 650 feet, I believe. And so a lot of hands-on experiences. We got to learn all about avionics and that kind of stuff. And then this year, I'm in the year 2. And so we're learning a lot about drones, or unmanned aircraft systems. And so by the end of the year, we should be able to get our commercial drone pilot's license. And so right now we're about to go into a competition with Skills USA. There's 4 competitors, and I'm one of them. And we're going to be competing in that competition and with our drones. And then actually right now at the moment, we're building a glider, a long duration glider that they should fly about 2 minutes. And so we're building that right now. And then year 3, I'm hoping to go with Mr. Markle. So, I mean, I love the program. It's my favorite 2 classes of the day. So
That's good to hear. And we find that a lot. Career and technical education courses tend to be some of the most favorite classes that students have because of that really intense interest and able to experience firsthand and hands-on the opportunities. So are you thinking more you mentioned in our conversation earlier that you did want to go transition to a post-secondary institution, but that you also wanted to get your pilot's license. So I'm assuming that maybe you're going to be focusing on the ground school to solo flight option. Is that correct, Lance? I mean, Seth, sorry.
Yeah. So, like I said, I want to go with Mr. Markle next year, and then in my senior year, I want to do the flight program there at our airport. And so, after the flight program, we get up to 20 hours of flight time, and we can solo if the instructor thinks we're ready. And so, after that, my plan is to go to college and to get my private pilot's license. And so, at least have that. I'm not sure exactly what career pathway I want to go into. There's so many to choose from in the aviation industry. And so, yeah, that's kind of my plan for the next little bit.
That's awesome. And it's okay not to know exactly which pathway you want to choose because you have really good goals right now. And it's great to hear you talk so confidently about those. So, just to reiterate, will you have the opportunity to get that mechanics certification prior to graduation in addition to that first leg of your solo flight experience? Is that how that works, Lance, or did I misunderstand?
Rick can probably answer that a little bit more. I
Okay.
know that they can log that, but he'll be the one that best answer
Okay,
that.
Rick, where do they end in that year 3 as far as credentialing and certifications go?
So through the FAA, the requirement is that someone who will be what we call an A&P mechanic, airframe and power plant mechanic, that person will have had to complete an A&P school, which is generally a 2-year program at most community colleges that offer it. However, there are accelerated programs that cost a little more money. Um, and it's possible to actually get this credential in under a year. However, that's a pretty intense program that not everyone is well suited for. Um, that is one pathway. The other pathway is through an apprenticeship. So let's say if Seth wanted to go to work part-time with one of our mechanics here on this airport, maintaining airplanes, he would be physically working and maintaining aircraft. However, he's not credentialed to sign off any of the repairs. That time counts toward a 30-month apprenticeship that the FAA will accept in it instead of the 2 years of physical school. At the end of that apprenticeship, he would essentially petition the FAA for permission to take the exams. They're intense exams. Most people who do this entirely on their own won't be successful. There are 1 week long prep courses offered across the country to prepare you to take those exams from an apprenticeship. And they have a very, very high success rate doing it that way. And it's cost effective. We're talking $4,000 or $5,000 to do one of these week-long immersive preps. So with me, I only have the students for 2 hours a day throughout about 10 months of the school year. So um, I am able to sign off a letter that attests to the FAA that this young person has been under my direct supervision building and maintaining aircraft. And that can count toward their apprenticeship if that's the path they choose to go later. And we are currently looking at a program which would allow us to bring these students back that are not wanting to fly, but are instead wanting to be mechanics. We could possibly bring them back a second and even a third year after graduation to complete an apprenticeship under myself, where they would then get signed off to take their exams. So those are the two pathways available. There's really not a pathway that allows virtually any high school student in the country to come out of the graduation from 12th grade with those credentials because of the length of time it takes to gain all of the experience necessary. However, we can take a little chunk and a little sting out of it through our program.
That makes sense, and that is absolutely wonderful for students interested in either of those options. And in addition to that, they are getting that 6 hours or potentially 6 hours of dual credit,
That's
correct?
that
Yeah.
is correct. Also, again, we're gonna shout out for Kentucky here again. Our Kentucky aviation industry is just outstanding in the way it's reaching out and providing pathways beyond what our schools are beginning to do. For instance, UPS has a program, and one of my students from 2 years ago is currently in that program. He built an airplane with me 2 years ago. He did the private pilot program last year as a senior and actually completed his private pilot's license by the end of his senior year, which has to be self-funded at that point. But he just, put his nose against the grindstone and got it done. He walked out of here, walked into UPS. They took a look at his resume and were like, "Oh, wow, you've done some impressive things." And of course parked them on a line throwing boxes at night. Well, that lasted about a month before he got bumped into a supervisory position and put into their program where they now pay him to go to JCTC and earn his mechanic's license. And they pay him for his work that he does every night before he goes to school in the morning, and they give them bonuses for good grades, a small stipend for living expense. UPS is basically home growing their own mechanics. So there are various pathways, and some of those suit our rural kids who may not have the support financially to find a
Mhm.
pathway through the private schools that are necessary.
That's wonderful. And it sounds like the student outcomes have been amazing for this program or pathway, both immediately and long term. Lance, we're getting a little bit close to the end, and we do have some additional questions that we're probably not going to get to. So I may send you all an email and ask you all to address these so I can share out with the people that are watching. And we do have a question in the Q&A regarding dual credit. Can students in Western Kentucky be allowed to take dual credit from EKU? And I think we have someone, got an answer on that. You will need to reach out to EKU directly, Aaron Baker or Rodney Tucker. And they also have an aviation program at Madisonville CTC too. The program is a little bit different, but would certainly recommend that you reach out to those folks. And if Robin, if you wouldn't mind dropping that into the Q&A so that they will have those names, or into the chat, that would be much appreciated. Lance, I have probably this will be our final question, but I want to give you an opportunity to address some of the biggest challenges that you faced in launching and scaling this pathway program, and just briefly talk about how you overcame those. And then any advice that you would give to a district that is that wants to start a similar program.
Well, yeah, so I kind of referenced the answer to that question a couple times. To elaborate, one, the biggest challenge was, as I mentioned, we did it during COVID. Like it was a pretty tough time for us. But again, I think it shows that to the collaboration and the capacity that we were able to build, it made it a lot easier for us because we were able to divide out the work and really didn't fall on one particular person's shoulders, and we were able to navigate all the challenges much more easily, I think, through that. And then the The other challenge I think was, and Rick talked about this too, is students really didn't think that a flight as an opportunity for them. I mean, they really just it didn't cross their minds that they could do something like this. And at least as quickly, I think. And they didn't know a lot about the industry. And so when we were getting this off of the ground, it really took a lot of one-on-one conversations with students. And that, there you go. It took a lot of one-on-one conversations with students to help them understand what the industry is and the opportunities within it. And that their particular skill sets that they bring, as various as they were, this industry and this program could be something that they'd be successful in. And so the other challenge was, I think, is again, when you're working with three different schools, we have three different school schedules. Nelson County, for example, is on block. We're on a 7-period day. Bethlehem is on a 7-period day, but their timing is different than ours. And so working out the logistics for students, and then the transportation piece of that, to get them out to the airport so that we can accommodate Mr. Markle, Sergeant Fost, and the others out at the airport. That took quite a bit of logistical thinking. But we were able to, again, overcome that. And Mr. Markle was flexible with us. Like, I think that there's a couple periods that our students maybe arrive 5 minutes late or 5 minutes early. And, we just made those adjustments. But those were the biggest, I think, the biggest challenges. And then as far as starting a program up, again, I'll mention just, not to sound cliche, but dare to dream a little bit and get out and meet people and understand what your local aviation industry looks like. And again, with 600 plus businesses, I'll guarantee you that there's a business nearby that is doing something within that industry. Create those conversations, build those partnerships, and I think you'll be surprised at the aviation industry. And again, Rick knows this better than anyone. What I found as I started getting into it a little bit was that it's a tight-knit group, and they are all about supporting each other and sharing resources, and are really have like a large community minded a population, and so when this idea was presented and the schools jumped on board, then the aviation field and the professionals within it really just came to support it. And so that would be my biggest recommendation on if you want to start a program is really create those relationships.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I do want to ask one last question. You are involved with the Workforce Development Board. You're chair of the regional board, in fact. So just really quickly, because we are running short on time, just tell us what an asset this can be to these types of programs and how people might really tap into that resource.
Sure. Yeah, I encourage you, please reach out to your local workforce development board. If you're in a role similar to mine here at Bardstown, or just, working with someone that works with the district or a CTE teacher, or there's so many resources that the Workforce Development Board has. Our job is to manage career centers within that particular region and manage WIOA funding, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding that creates opportunities really such as this, similar to this, and aligns high school with post-secondary training, helps and supports students oftentimes when they leave our doorstep. Yes, we're here as a resource, but we're not seeing them every day, and they're moving about and all that. And so, like, the career services team is a good handoff for students as they graduate to continue to support them. And then there's a workforce development board in all the regions throughout the state of Kentucky that would be happy to help those students. So, like, telling the students that before they leave, and making sure that they are meeting and connected to their career center locally, is a great idea and a huge resource for them. But yeah, it's definitely reach out to them if you haven't.
Perfect. Thank you. Couple of things that I want to share with our people watching. We do have another webinar, January 27th. Robin Abear with CPE will be leading that, and will be kind of a continuation of Pathways with Purpose, designing early post-secondary plans that work. We also have our series, the rest of the series listed there. So we certainly encourage you to join as many and all if you possibly can. Also, we want you to stay connected to our work through Facebook and the World Wide Web. And finally, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or to Robin Abear. Our contact information is on the screen. Seth, I'm really proud of all of the work that you are doing. Wish you so much success. I cannot imagine how your parents will feel when you take that solo flight, or how your teachers will feel. I have witnessed a friend's son doing a flight like that, and I was a nervous wreck, so I can only imagine. But I know you will do great things, and I'm proud that you have the opportunity to participate. Before I share the evaluation slide, I do want to give Lance, Rick, Seth, and Michaela one final opportunity to share anything else that maybe was missed during our conversation. Anybody have anything they want to add?
Yes, I'd like to add how what we're trying to do here in Bardstown is somewhat different than what other programs are across the nation, and that is we are actually bringing our students back into the program and folding them back in as instructors as they enter their careers. We will this year, and we're so excited to share this summer, one of our very first build students will be leaving EKU with a certified flight instructor's rating, with instrument ratings, with a commercial pilot's rating, with outstanding academics, and he will not be able to get a job as an airline pilot because he does not have the required 1,000 to 1,500 hours just to get the interview. The way they achieve that is through flight training. So one of our own students will be coming back this summer from EKU to join our team and begin giving back, as well as developing his career out further. We currently have two other students who are flight instructors on our team now as well. One that was mentioned earlier, Gibson, did not go off to college, but he has just been flying his tail off since high school and just recently obtained his certified flight instructor's rating and is now instructing our students. So we're excited about that. I hope in the near future to have one of our more mechanically inclined students come back into the fold and perhaps help me teach our program building.
That's wonderful. That's great student outcomes, and we love to hear those student success stories. We appreciate you all being with us today. For those of you who are in the audience, we encourage you to scan that evaluation link. That is how, if you need ELA or FRISC credit, you will get that, and also gives us some feedback as to how we are doing with this webinar series, and if there's topics or things that you certainly want us to include in the future. Rick, Lance, Seth, Michaela, we certainly appreciate your all's time. You shared some great information. Love what you all are doing to support students in their college and career journeys. Could have asked a lot more questions, but we are certainly out of time today. Thank you all for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on January 27th.
Mitzi, can I say
Yes,
one last thing?
you sure can.
One last thing, 2 seconds. So
You're fine.
the other thing is we've referenced males in this field as the students, but just we've had females in every year program, and I think that that is an important, and to like socioeconomic status, looking at that, the student population is diverse and they can all be successful within this. I just wanted to make sure to mention that as well.
Thank you for bringing that up. I certainly appreciate that touch point. Guys, you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you all for attending. And again, we look forward to seeing you January 27th.
Thank you, Mitzi.
Bye. Thank you.
all.